Hi, I'm Jean Dancy, and this is the boxing scene. And no, 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 your eyes do not deceive you. This is still Norman Carter's show. However, he is being interviewed today by me. Hi, Norman.
Hi, Jean. I tell you, you really put me in a somewhat uncomfortable position, but
Why
I
is
think
that?
well, because I'm used to sitting in your chair.
Oh, yeah. It does feel sort of nice sitting over here for a change.
Well, I tell you, before we go any further, I want to thank you for coming by. I mean, you're looking marvelous.
Oh,
the colors just lighten
thank
up
you.
the set, and I'm sure we have a host of topics that we're going to talk about. So, whenever you feel comfortable, let's get the show rolling.
Probably the most current thing that just happened was the Holmes-Holyfield fight. So perhaps we should comment on that. And I'd like to know what you thought about that.
Okay, well, I think that, you know, the heavyweight division right now is in a sad situation, and the reason why I say that is it's in a very sad situation. And the reason why I say that is because the top heavyweight contenders are not fighting the champion. We have Donovan Razor Ruddock, who fought Tyson in his last 2 fights, who I think is more than a worthy opponent to fight Evander Holyfield.
He is.
Then we have a gentleman by the name of Riddick Bowe. Okay, they call him Riddick Big Daddy Bowe. And, you know, there's several other fighters. I mean, the list go on and on. Of course, we have a gentleman from London by the name of Lennox Lewis. However, boxing today is a money sport. Evander Holyfield came along at the right time.
Oh, didn't he? Oh,
you know, he
that
defeated,
man is so blessed.
Yes, he defeated Buster Douglas, who, as you know, beat Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson, of course, had his problems that took him out of the boxing scene, at least for the next 2-3 years.
Which certainly drastically changed the way it's looking, don't you think?
Certainly did.
Drastically.
You know, Evander Holyfield have some smart people. They're choosing the fights for Evander Holyfield that will pay him the most amount of money with the least amount of risk.
And, well, I mean, can you really argue with that?
No, but, you know, the real boxing fans want to see the title, the champion defend his title against certainly top-rated contenders. Getting back to the fight, Larry Holmes acquitted himself very well.
Didn't he? I mean, honestly, I can say that, well, I've got a lot of respect for Larry because of his last fight with Ray Mercer. I mean, I was so shocked. I couldn't believe he handled himself as beautifully as he did. And one thing that Bundini Brown used to say years ago was that whenever you have youth and you have age, always go with age because they have the ring wisdom. And I mean, Larry behaved himself with real ring generalship, and you know, he used the ropes and all of that to his advantage. And I thought that was really great, and he did the same thing. I mean, he didn't fight the same kind of fight, but certainly he, I mean, were you surprised? I mean, I was.
Well, I think that, you know, Larry Holmes got the shot at Evander Holyfield based primarily on the fact that of all the contenders in the heavyweight division, he was the only one that fought a top 10 competition when he fought Ray Mercer. Okay, so in fighting Ray Mercer, and surprisingly enough, handling Ray Mercer very easily, that enabled him to get the shot at Holyfield. I was very impressed with the way he was able to, in the Holyfield fight, he was able to a certain degree, dictate the pattern of the fight.
I was surprised.
Okay.
I was very surprised. I was happy for him because, you know, I guess I sort of go for the underdog, and Holyfield certainly wasn't the underdog. Though I like you, Holyfield, I really do. But, you know, I like the fact that, you know, Larry had been ridden off. And when people have been ridden off and they come back, that's always nice, don't you think?
Well, that's the American dream. Everybody wants to see somebody who has been knocked down, kicked down, be able to rise up once again.
The way Tommy Hearns did. Remember with the Virgil Hill fight? I mean, oh, he's too old, he's this, he's that, but what did he do?
Well, you know, he's shocked everybody because certainly in, we'll be back to the Holmes-Holyfield fight. In the Tommy Hearns fight with Virgil Hill, and I had a chance to interview both participants when they were here for the press conference, the general feeling was Tommy Hearns was a shot fighter.
Yes.
He had gotten knocked out by Iran Barkley. He had had a full career. I mean, he had basically had a long stretch of fights where either he won or he lost, but he never really had any break in between. And, you know, he had gotten a close decision over James the Heat Kinchin.
Yes,
after that particular fight, I think most people thought that his career was over. But he was able to surprise everybody.
Shocked
you know,
everybody,
the statement that you made earlier, as far as experience over youth. Youth has to be served, but there's something to be said about experience.
Certainly there is.
Because in terms of experience, you have to serve your apprenticeship to get to the point where you can be looked upon as a veteran, experienced fighter. I know Tommy is one of your one of the fighters that you admire the most.
I mean,
And ladies and gentlemen, let me say this before we go any further.
Are there words to say?
This lady was one of our premier promoters here in Los Angeles. Her late husband, Marty Monroe, top heavyweight contender. She not only managed Marty, but she also promoted Marty's career. So as we sit here talking about boxing, believe me, she's very knowledgeable about the sport of which we're talking about. But like you were saying, Tommy Hearns, you know, Tommy recently, as you know, lost another close decision. He lost a 12-round decision to Iran Barkley. What do you think of Tommy Hearns as far as where he's at right now in his career? I mean, in terms of, there are those who wish him well and would like to see Tommy just take the money and just live happily ever after.
Well, first I'd like to say this about the Barkley fight, the second one that he had. When he was knocked down, I sat with the referees and judges at the fight, and I heard some of them saying, he's not going to get up, because usually when he's hit that way, he doesn't get up.
Right.
And I thought when he got up and he fought so courageously that I was so proud of him. I was prouder of him than I would have been had he not been knocked down. So I'd like to say that.
Certainly.
And for right now, you know, I know people always say, well, you know, when are you going to retire, Tommy? When are you going to do this and do that? I think that the person has to do what's within his or her own heart. And obviously, he isn't ready. And since he isn't ready, I think he has to do what he thinks is best. And I mean, they said he should have retired before he fought Virgil Hill. And had he listened to the people, he wouldn't have gotten his 6th title. So that shows you, you know, a lot about whether you should listen to people or not.
There's a lot to be said about that, but there's another side to that coin. I think that most fighters, it's very difficult for them to see the deterioration in themselves.
Yes, that's
because
true.
they usually have memories of days gone by. I think it's also wise as a boxer to have people that surround you that is in your best interest. I think when he departed services with Emmanuel Stewart, I think Emmanuel was basically trying to tell him, Tommy, we've had a very, very good run. You know, we've had as much success as
great run. Yes. Yes.
as much as one could expect in this profession. And I think he was trying to hint to Tommy that, you know, it might not be a bad decision for him to walk away from the sport. I will say this, as you just mentioned, had he listened to everybody, he would not have been able to win that 6th title against Virgil Hill.
That's right.
And, you know, the thing about boxing is that as long as you're a marquee name, it's hard to walk away. You know, Roberto Duran, he's getting ready to fight again.
I didn't know that. Who's he going to fight?
Well, you know, he beat Iran Barkley a couple of years ago. Now, Barkley wants to redeem himself.
Oh, come
he wants to
on.
fight Duran
But you know, he's doing Duran a favor as far as, I suppose,
of
payday
course.
goes.
Exactly.
Well, what do you
exactly.
think would happen? I mean...
Well, you know, I saw Duran this past weekend at the Holmes Holyfield fight.
Always been a favorite.
And he looked more like a heavyweight now than the Duran that we recalled.
He's pretty fat, isn't he?
So that's somewhere in the far distance.
But what do you think? What do you think the outcome would be? I mean, do you think?
I think that at this point, Duran has deteriorated too much. I think he's too far gone, right? And Duran has not fought exceptionally well once he was above, I would say, probably the middleweight division. As you know, Duran was lightweight champion for 7.5 years.
Wasn't he one of the best lightweights you ever saw in your life?
I would go as far as to say he's the best.
Oh,
yes, right.
God.
There are people that say people like Benny Leonard and a few others.
I'd have to go with
but I would
Roberto
have to go
Duran.
with him.
There's no question. I'd go with Duran.
But,
I mean, there's no question.
You know, that's what Barkley's talking about. Tommy Hearns, on the other hand, there's a mention of Tommy Hearns fighting possibly Bobby Chez, who's the cruiserweight champion.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know. You know, I look at Tommy Hearns with mixed feelings. I admire him so much. He's given me so much thrills over the years, and I'm sure he's done the same to all the boxing fans.
Yes, he has.
But, you know, we just basically hope that nothing happened to Tommy
where
he has to walk away too late instead of, you know, too soon.
Well, what do you think about if he does the Chez fight? Do you think maybe that should be the last one?
I think probably both Bobby Chez and Tommy Hearns are at the same point in their career at this point. You know, the problem is though Chez is a more powerful man. He's a stronger fighter than Tommy Hearns, and he's also in the heavier weight class. Tommy will have to move up to cruiserweight from light heavy. I don't know how well Tommy can carry the cruiserweight, you know, weight as opposed to the light heavyweight. But you know, it's another big paycheck for Tommy. And let's face it, that's what this game is all about. Anybody that say they come into boxing not to make money is crazy. You know what
Absolutely. Well, what about what they're saying about Foreman Holmes? I mean,
You know, I think that, myself included, you know, we're in the 40-ish age group. I think we would enjoy seeing that. I think that...
You're in the 40-ish age group, so
right.
you... Honey, don't include me in that. When I reach 40, I'll tell you honestly. So do you
just
think
a baby.
that... yes, quite a baby. I mean, yes. So what do you think will happen if that comes to pass? And I do believe it'll come to pass, don't you?
I think it will, because I think Bob Arum, promoter Bob Arum, wants to see that fight. I think he feels that both fighters acquitted themselves very well against Evander Holyfield, and I think the only obvious thing to do would be to put both of these guys together.
Although in a way, you know, the two veterans,
you don't want to really see them hurt each other.
Them hurt each other.
Exactly, right.
Eliminate each other.
I really wouldn't want to see that fight,
you
to be
know,
honest
really,
with you.
Me
because
either, really.
I think that both guys are at the point in their life right now where they should be enjoying life. Boxing is not a sport for a man in his 40s. I don't care who it is, whether it's...
Not even Big George, huh?
I just think that what it requires when you get into that stage of your life, it just takes so much out of you. I mean, the rigorous training, the constant denying yourself of the things that you really want to consume.
But you know what, though, Norman, excuse me, there's something to be said, though, about that, because, you know, I've been around so many boxers, and sometimes when the boxers are really young, and I was talking with one just the other day who was telling me that he never really ran, he never did this, and he never did that, and he was undefeated, and he felt like, well, I'm undefeated, so I don't have to train the way others do. Youth will tell you that I don't have to train. But now George Foreman, as I'm sure you've noticed and the public has noticed, is an entirely different man than the George that we saw years ago.
Exactly.
This is a different George. So that George, I don't believe, was as disciplined as this George is. As you know, I interviewed George after his fight with Evander, and he's just a more mature person, obviously. And I mean, I think we have to say that as far as discipline goes, this is on the side where he's better.
Right. Well, George Foreman has learned to become a better fighter because he's learned how to fight more relaxed. He's more comfortable.
And his personality.
And certainly when you're a younger fighter, there are certain shortcuts that you can take to a certain degree and still get to where you want to go. But as you get older, it requires extreme discipline. You certainly have to do all the work that is required. You cannot take any shortcuts. And I think older fighters were aware of that more so than younger fighters.
And of course, George's shortcuts were always, I will just knock you out and go home. And that's the shortcuts that I'll take.
That's one way if you can go that route. But, you know, they're going to make that fight, I believe. I believe if both guys want that fight.
I believe Harold Smith, who, as I'm sure you know, is affiliated with Larry Holmes at this time, I think Harold would probably, knowing Harold as I do, want to see that fight. And I think the public would probably...
Yeah, and talking about Harold Smith, a gentleman that...
My darling Harold, I love you, Harold. You know I do.
A gentleman that has been very elusive as far as I'm concerned. Harold, you know I've been trying to get you on the boxing scene. You know, I think that Harold is probably one of the smartest promoters in the game if given the opportunity to come back to the forefront. Regardless of what anyone might feel about Harold Smith, that has no bearings on the fact that the gentleman is very, very shrewd in terms of boxing, you know, management.
Yes.
I think that what he's done with Larry Holmes and his comeback fight is just an example.
Isn't it? I mean, it would take Harold Smith to resurrect Larry and do something totally out of the ordinary.
Got him a title shot within a shorter period of time than it took George Foreman. And, of course, the big win for Larry was Ray Mercer. That just automatically propelled him into a title shot and came very close to winning that title.
You know what I'd like to do when we get back? I'd like to say a few things about Harold Smith. We'll be right back, okay?